talking about meeting him in Florida. I mean, he had no high-level playing experience whatsoever, Mark, and in his 20s, didn't have a ton of coaching experience. Like, what drew you to him?
I'll tell you the kind of the foundation of this is, I used to go down and watch practice or whatever, and have some questions about the players, Bradley Beal or whoever was there, because they had good players. And then he and another guy on the staff, Oliver Winterbone, would ask, hey, yeah, like, so it was like, we'll tell you about the players, but then they would like pepper me worse than this. And so we would just talk for a long time about different things. They'd be curious about the NBA, the way we were doing things, why we were doing things a certain way. I'd want to know the players. They knew the SEC pretty good, so we just talk about. So spent a lot of hours together. It's funny because one thing about Mark is he's a copious note taker. He's got all these notes from my conversations with him, and he sent them to me recently, like 2 years ago. So I'm like looking at all this stuff that I was saying. I was like, oh my God, what an idiot. And so he's all these notes of all these people he's talked to. So, but yeah, that's how the relationship really started. And then obviously we hired Oliver. He was here for a while. He's now gone into player representation, or I shouldn't say that, staff representation. And then after that, I hired Mark, and he did the G League, and we spent a lot of time together because when we were in playoff series, he was always around. But he was never on the bench, so I'd watch a lot of the game in the back with him. You know what I mean? And we just talk about different situations, or when the G League season was over, did a lot with the draft process. So I think just like, and he's seen a lot of things within the organization. He's been here for a long time, so there's a lot of corporate knowledge that I think that aids us. We can get right to certain things like quickly,
I think the players will know who he is during the draft process this year.
Yeah, I think they will know who he is during the draft process. It depends. Sometimes like he'll do it, sometimes he won't do it. It's a great opportunity for some of the other coaches. So like when we talk about development within the organization, we're talking about that with everybody. So it's not so like part of the reason Mark is because we put him in situations to run the draft stuff, or I took him with me to run a workout for a player that wouldn't come in here, but we ran it somewhere else. So he ran the workout with a couple other guys. And so just, again, competitive diversity, professional diversity, just getting these different situations. So we want other people to get those types of experiences too. And a lot of times the summer is big for that. But yeah, I think he'll be well known at this point. And that he controls the minutes.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but you guys would have went like 78-4 if Aaron Wiggins started every game.
He mentioned that to me in the exit meeting. It's funny he said that. No, he didn't.
What about him is just like, I don't know, everyone associates him with having like a winning characteristic.
I just think with him, again, goes back to I was answering a question about player evaluation. It's just how nebulous it is. Difference between like evaluating a player and knowing what to do with the player, those are big things, but the person is a big thing too. So I don't know how you could sit and rank a bunch of players without knowing anything about them. And so we have a lot of information on all the players because we do our work like every other NBA team does. We just heard really good things about him as a guy, stability-wise, maturity-wise for his age. And, we've been fortunate that kind of some of those back-end situations, whether it was Lou or Wiggins, the probabilities in those areas, I'm sure everybody knows, like you're into like below 1%. Like it's low probability. But we try not to treat the decision like that, though. So, we don't treat the decision process based on the, probability of the success. He did a good job with us, and the biggest thing I could say about that is he's just very mature and steady. So he accomplished what he did at the G League, in the NBA, the same way he did at the G League. And even coming through Summer League, I mean, he was steady, took things as they came, ready when called upon. I remember I was in the G League bubble. I think this is right. It was in the G League bubble, and Mark called me because I think Lou may have been injured, and was like, "I'm thinking about starting Wiggins. What do you think?" And I was like, "All right." I mean, I think it was on a two-way. And it was just like, I think it's another example of like putting the conscious discomfort and like seeing the benefits of that. Everybody sees, oh, Aaron Wiggins has turned into a reliable player. But that's because we had to put him in situations where he wasn't to find out if he could be. And I think that's the beginner's mindset that I referenced earlier. I think for our organization, with our market, with our ethos and our ideals, that's kind of important to us. We can't really lose that. We need to be a little unorthodox and be willing to do things and take risks where it could go poorly, and take the criticism if people feel like, that's necessary. But the worst thing to do would be to not explore those things, and you never uncover the potential of something because you're so scared of what other people might say, even if they don't understand you.
Do you plan to play 2 summer leagues again this year, and kind of what was the benefit of doing that last year?
We are. We're going to do both. More reps, different environments, more opportunities. The hard part is you just can't play everybody the whole time because it's just the schedule's pretty grueling. But our guys they soaked it up last year. I mean, we had to, take a couple guys off the floor because they were just toast by the end. But yeah, I think it's great for us to do that. I'm a fan of doing that.
And then going back to the G League, you saw Andre come back to the floor and return to the organization. What was that like for you to kind of watch that unfold?
Oh, it was just amazing. I mean, the part about that to me is like, you want to talk about a guy that this is what made him a good player. He's over himself. Like, most guys would not do that, but he wants to play. And he's a competitor. And I went and watched him practice, some days, and you wouldn't know that he was, pretty impactful player in a Western Conference Finals team. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't the reason we didn't advance those years. When the lights were bright, and it was, he would find ways to impact the game. And he was a great teammate. And it was a great teammate to those guys too at the Blue. So he's one of the all-time teammates I think we've had. In addition to being a part of a lot of winning, Perk I think won 75% of his games while I was here, and with some help. But he flipped a bit of a switch for us, and was a pretty important component because we were missing something, and it was clear, and we were able to figure that out. Dre, again with a lot of help, but played his role exceptionally well, and he came up in some pretty big moments. Never backed down. Not a guy that flinches.
To follow up, you mentioned that first 51 Thunder team, and then you just mentioned Perk. You mentioned Jeff Green as one of the guys, and
I'm feeling nostalgic today.
Yeah, very nostalgic. But some of the matchups against teams like the Grizzlies, the Lakers, the Spurs, and just lacking some of the physicality, and then you get Perk. I guess I wanted to ask: is it too early? Are you looking at other team constructions as kind of
that's kind of what I'm saying. And the fact that you're asking me the question is like a lifeline that I didn't explain it well. So let me try one more time, because I don't think I did a good job with it. It's so early. I think when we were at that point where we were a 50-win team organically on our own volition, and the other teams were kind of, composed to a certain degree, we were less known than those teams were, I think, compositionally, because we were still so young. No one really knew how good we'd be, but we were threatening you. I mean, we were 18 games over 500 after the first. When we got to 50 wins, anywhere 18 games, we went. It was a big improvement. I can't remember what it was, but it was pretty quick. I don't think you can look and say, oh, well, the West is down, or this team. I mean, because the West was not down, and then Kevin Durant just parachuted into the West. So if you're waiting to, for the seas to, part for you, it will never happen. I also think that if you become impatient or reckless, you can, storm the beach, but it may not be very wise to do that until you really are prepared to take on those types of teams, especially if you're going to expend a lot of assets to do that. So I wouldn't say we're looking at that, because the one thing about the NBA, and it's happened more and more, is things are changing very quickly, and that's why I think you have to be adaptable. And that's why what I said earlier in the open, I feel we're well positioned. I feel we're well positioned to be adaptable, if and when we decide to make a decision or move ahead in a way that is unorthodox.
What books are you reading this summer?
Well, that's the end. It's someone has said uncle. So this is, was that a real question, or are you just trying to end the?
Both.
Okay, all right. I'll just do the last things I've read. I read this a book by Laird Hamilton, is a surfer. It was good. I'm reading a book about Brian Eno, the producer. George Martin, book about him, that producer. That was good. There's a book called Sparks of Genius. Can't remember. Heard it. Someone recommended it to me. It's pretty good. I thought it was good. It talks a lot more. I'm really fascinated by the left brain, right brain, the toggling, and I think that that talks a little bit about that. There's more on the list. I'm coming up a little dry here, but and then we'll see. I'm sure there'll be more by the end of the summer. I'm sure, and someone will ask that, maybe an earlier stage of the next press conference.
What's
You'll
the
ask
good
that.
luck showing to overcome the 98.3% odds of getting the top pick?
Being at peace with the fact that you know that you have no control over it, and just not worrying about that. So, well, anyway, I just want to say one thing before we end. April 28th through the 30th is the Memorial Marathon. Okay, obviously yesterday was the date of the memorial. 28 years. That weekend is a big weekend for the city, because we have thousands and thousands of people coming in to run in that marathon. One, because it's an incredible moment of reflection that is important for our city to always remember. The other is that they have an opportunity to engage with the people here. So it's a great opportunity for people to experience Oklahoma and Oklahomans and the Oklahoma standard. So if you can, I would tell people, get out and try to support people during that race, because I think people walk away from all over the world with a real positive experience. Take your kids or take somebody, go cheer some people on. I think it's the kind of stuff that as a society we need to continue to get back to doing, and recognize that it's for an important cause and it brings attention to the fact that we got to always remember, but also, it's an opportunity to demonstrate what the people here are made of and why it's such a great place. So I just tell people, hey, get out there. We're going to have thousands and thousands of visitors. Let's make sure that they have a great experience and walk away feeling great about their experience here and want to come back. All right. Thank you guys for everything.